Hi, welcome back. In this segment, we're going to deal with Reconstruction number 6. Remember, we're reconstructing arguments so that the logic is more apparent. And we've been using a court case, the Queen versus David Harold Eastman. You can find the decision here, and this is the link to an article that talks about some of the facts. A short piece of it is here. And in this case, you had the highest ranking police officer in Australia to be murdered. Assistant Commissioner Colin Winchester was shot twice in the head at point-blank range as he was stepping from his car outside his Deakin home in the ACT at about 9:15 p.m. on January 10, 1989. And here we've gone to Andrew Palmer's excellent book, Proof: How to Analyze Evidence in Preparation for Trial, and pulled out some of the reasonings that he says for this example of unraveling or reconstructing point to this, what in this instance we're going to call a conclusion. The same one we've been working with all along. So again, we create our tray area for working, and we put the conclusion right here. Eastman was the man who purchased the Clarenbeck rifle on or about 31 December 1989. And then we've placed what's been called the 4 reasons here. And we're kind of going to look at this material then and see if we can extract this information from this in a way that we can make the logic clear. So we start out separating the contention, the conclusion, into its subject phrase and its predicate phrase, and we move it down and start filling in the blanks on the logic bridge template right here. And then of course we have to separate the main conclusion so that the first premise begins with the subject phrase of the conclusion, and the predicate phrase of the last premise is the predicate phrase of the conclusion. Now here we've depicted 4 premises. You might have more, you might have less. This is just kind of a starting point for us, so we can see there's a number of blanks that we're going to have to fill in with complex predicates so that the stepping stones here logically are in an order that logically connect. So it takes some reflection when you look at a number of premises to decide, well, how do they group together? And I spent a fair amount of time on this one. But I ultimately concluded that it seemed like these two were paired together. So here again, I've pulled out the predicate phrase here from Eastman because we're going to be starting our line of reasoning with Eastman. We've moved it then up here as our first premise. Eastman already had a telescopic sight. And then I've concluded from looking at the components that from all the pieces here, this is going to be a 2-premise line of reasoning. And I duplicate the premise phrase of the first premise and I put it into the subject side for our second premise. And now I have 2 premises. Number 1, Eastman already had a telescopic sight. And premise 2, one who already had a telescopic sight was the man who purchased the Clarenbeck rifle on or about 31 December 1989. Now we have this last piece, and like a jigsaw puzzle, we're going to see where we might fit that in. And here, it does fit as an assumption. Remember, we always have to consider our assumptions column once we have properly structured the inferential linked premises. And here we can see that the assumption, the purchaser of the Clarenbeck rifle already had a telescopic sight, fits as a support for the truth of premise number 2. One who already had a telescopic sight was the man who purchased the Clarenbeck rifle on or about 31 December 1989. So now we go back to our original argument that we're reconstructing, and we see 2 more premises that were tossed out there, and we're going to see if we can put them organize them in a fashion that makes logical sense. And here I can see Eastman's name, so that gives me a clue that I'm going to be able to use this predicate here, preferred Ruger rifle. So I moved that one up into our first premise, trying to see how it fits. And I have my first premise as Eastman preferred a Ruger rifle. Well, I can tell if this is the only piece that's left, and it doesn't have a relationship to Eastman, I know that this isn't going to fit into the inferential link, so I can move the predicate phrase of my conclusion up to here, and again have a 2-premise line of reasoning, and then I take the predicate phrase of one premise and put it in position as the subject phrase of the next premise. And here we have 2 premises. Premise 1, Eastman preferred a Ruger rifle, and premise 2, one who preferred a Ruger rifle was the man who purchased the Clarenbeck rifle on or about 31 December 1989. Now we got one more piece to try to fit into the logic bridge template, which is the Clarenbeck rifle was a Ruger. So we start looking at our assumptions column, and we see that it fits right here, because the statement the Clarenbeck rifle was a Ruger is important support as an assumption for the truth of premise 2. One who preferred a Ruger rifle was the man who purchased the Clarenbeck rifle on or about 31 December 1989. Now remember, in this case, as it was stated, this was apparently all built on circumstantial evidence. So, I'm not saying here that the truth of any of these premises is obvious, or that it's strong, or it's weak, or it's 100%. That's what the fact finder had to decide in this case. But what we've done here is structure the original argument, keeping the same meaning, into a format in which the logic of it is clearly evident here. Thank you.